All right, welcome guys to another episode of Investing with Quito. So with me, I have my friend here, Jeremy, and we're doing this. Once a week we get together. Jeremy's got some questions, and we've got stories that we can share. So welcome to the show, Jeremy. Want to introduce yourself?
Yeah, hey, I'm Jeremy. Been in Billings, Montana for a while now and jumping into the game of investing. So I call myself an inspiring investor. Uh, Started to invest in things and do that, but always want to grow and scale. So Keto's a great one to ask questions of. So I love that. So Keto, one thing we did, we talked about our meetup last week and we had that. And as I was
Hmm.
noticing in our group, not a lot of people are still working on getting their very first deal in real estate or in business, whatever they're going for. And so I just
All
had a
right.
question of if we're particularly focusing on real estate as the vehicle of creating some wealth, getting some cash flow, becoming financially independent, how, well, first tell me what is like the game of real estate? Like when someone gets started and you're looking to have long-term financial stability and cash flow, what is like the start to finish look like? How does someone get started, and what does that look like to get started in the business?
Yeah, I think, one thing to get started is, very simplistic, right? Is first you got to decide that that's what you want to do, right? The first thing in anything is just that decision. Like, okay, investing is what I want to do, right? Then the next thing is that, start to learn what it is, right? It's like, oh, because you hear about, investing here and there, but start to learn, whether read some books, listen to some podcasts. I mean, right now, more than ever, we have so much access to, technology, right? And we
Mhm.
have access to people we have never even met, right? Like this YouTube, the recording, who knows who's going to watch this, right? And it may, somebody 3, 5 years from now may run across this video. And that's the great thing about, technology, is that, when I started, gosh, back in 2000 and started in like 2003, there wasn't easy access to, to industry experts, right?
Mhm.
So, I've kind of learned like through trial and error. Sure, I read some books in here and there, and maybe took a couple seminars, but it wasn't that easily accessible like the information we have now. So one is that you decide. Two is I start to learn about the investing, especially if it's real estate, because real estate, it's so localized, right? Because when you look at real estate as a whole, I mean, other parts of the country may be experiencing a rise, some parts experiencing a decline. So it's really localized. And even in the local market, there's like micro areas, right? Like
Mhm.
certain neighborhoods, like you could be in, um, one part of town, and like a block down the street, the home price is like $50,000 less, right? So it's really, understanding the different, the different markets, your area, where you want to invest, the different strategies. And there's so many different strategies of,
Mhm.
whether it's wholesaling, whether it's lease option, um, there's just so lots of different ways, Airbnb, right? Short-term, mid-term rentals. So, I mean, you can get lost in just a sea of of like what I want to say, like strategies, right?
Yeah.
But so just kind
Mhm.
of, pick one and start going down that rabbit hole, just going down that path, and just be focused. And I think especially for new investors, they're thinking, gosh, I'm sorry, I don't have any money. Like what
Right.
what do I do? Like I don't have any money to invest, but I want to invest. And and that's and then that's where the opportunity lies, because people think that money is what's stopping them from investing, but there's lots of different ways to get in the game, right?
So
Like,
how would someone get in? Because so this is what I've heard like from other experts is like some people get started and they start wholesaling right away and they
mhm.
just build their capital and then they deploy it and maybe some of their deals they keep. So, or like people just start with like, I'm just going to buy and hold, and it's going to take me a number of years, but at least I'm going to be stable. So, is there a difference between like getting active income first and then deploying your money into real estate, or how did you do? I think you went right into just the long-term hold for real estate, or how did you pick one, I guess?
Yeah, yeah. For me, so I did a start and stop, couple different ways, right? But I think the best way, I mean, if you're looking for income, right, income right away, it's just to getting really active. And I think, wholesaling is a good strategy, right? For someone who, maybe they have a job, maybe their job's not paying well, and wholesaling is a great way to get in the active income game, right? Because as you know, those of you guys who we don't understand what wholesaling is basically you get a property under contract, and then what you do is you turn around, you sell it to another buyer, to another investor, okay? And the difference that you make, you have it under contract for $100,000, you sell it for say $125,000, right? That's $25,000 income right there,
Hmm.
right? And
Yeah,
then
that's a big hit.
eventually, yeah, so it's a big hit of income. Great. Now, once you get that, it's like, okay, well, then you can start, once you get that passive income, that active income coming in, you could turn around and then maybe start deploying that money where it's buying whole. Because ultimately, I mean, if you want to build wealth, I mean, I always tell people it's like, getting cash flow is the way to building your wealth, right? Like it's good to have active income, whether it's from a job, whether it's from doing other things, active income. But when you park your money in real estate and start collecting cash flow, and I think that's what really turned around for me was when I decided that, you know what, I'm gonna instead of I've got good active income coming in because I was doing some wholesaling deals, right? Uh,
Hmm.
and it's like, well, let me start holding these properties for cash flow. And then you get to the point where, okay, I basically set myself a goal. Okay, what's my cash flow? How much cash flow do I want each month coming in? And for people, I encourage them to like sit down, figure out what's your monthly expenses. What's your car payment? What's your mortgage payment? Um, and how much do you want to put aside for vacation a year, right? So you kind of decide what that number is and make that a goal. Say, okay, well, this is the income that I want to generate each month. And then from there, you could kind of work backwards. Like, okay, well, if I got a property that's making, say, $300 each month or $400 each month, right? How many properties would I need in order to hit my number? And so you just kind of work that way and just figure, okay, well, even if it took you 3 years, 4 years, 5 years, right? The thing is, the years are going to come either way, right?
Hmm.
There, a year from now, it's going to be a year from now. 2 years from now is 2 years from now. But what's important is what are you doing now to set yourself up for that? So
Hmm.
it basically is, getting that active income is great, whether that's wholesaling. And there's other creative ways too. Like people's like, hey, I want to get income, but what do I do? But here's the thing is some people think like real estate is you have to own real estate. But the truth is that you can just control real estate, right? Um,
Hmm.
when I first got started, I was doing what's called a lease option. Okay. And basically what that is I would lease a property from a landlord and say, hey,
Hmm.
would you give me the ability to buy this property 3 or 5 years from now? And sometimes, once you find out their motivation, right, they say, well, sure, well, why do it? So, and what I did was I went ahead and I subleased it out to another tenant. So for example, I think my first deal was doing like $800 a month, right?
Hmm.
I turn around and I rent it out for $1,200 a month. So that was an instant $400 a month cash flow. I didn't own the property, right?
Yeah, so you don't have to pay taxes, or you don't have to
Don't have
do
to
it
pay
like,
taxes or anything
oh,
like that. And I just collect that. And what I did was I think in this particular instance, what was that? I think it's been years ago, but I picked up the property. It's like almost like I want to say like 200,000.
hmm.
This was in Seattle, and and then I sold it for like 250, right? So my option was for 200, and then I lease option it out to another tenant buyer for 250. So that was like
Hmm.
a $50,000 spread. Meantime, I was collecting $400 a month, right?
Hmm.
And oh, by the way, I'll just give you a little, just a quick overview with the lease option. With the option is I had the tenant buyer give me an option to purchase the property from me. So at that time, I think I asked them for like 10,000 bucks or whatever, right?
Hmm.
And then the person that I was buying it from, I, you know, I gave them $5,000. So here's 5,000 option money for me to purchase this from you for 200. And then, so I turn around 250, right? Asked for $10,000. So right away I made a $5,000 gain plus $400 each month,
Hmm.
right? So that to me is like a real easy way to get in the game is like, hey, well, you could wholesale it. That's great. Find a deal, sell it to another investor, right? And make that spread. Or two is just go and do a lease option with the landlord. And people
Yeah.
say,
You
well,
do
wow,
like Airbnb arbitrage, that kind of thing as well, if
yeah,
that's popular.
absolutely, absolutely. Because right now the Airbnb arbitrage is popular. People are even just renting out rooms, right?
Hmm.
Like
Yeah.
they're living in a 4-bedroom home and they got 3 other bedrooms. They rent that out for $500 a month or whatever, $600 a month, and that can, you know, they could essentially live for free, right?
Hmm.
And I'm not, aren't you doing that too, right? With their like
Yeah.
house hack, right?
Yeah, so our first deal was our first home, right? We got it with a FHA loan and got it, 3% down, whatever. And then the basement was a separate unit. So we rented out the basement. It paid for half our mortgage, and we just used it as grocery money and gas money. So we didn't have to put it in the bank and claim it. So it just really helped our bottom line. So it really just made our living a lot cheaper. So that was great. And then we did that again. So we moved into another home that ends another basement downstairs, rent that out. And then we have the whole other house paid for itself plus $400 a month. And then this one's also paying half our mortgage. So again, the plan is whenever we feel like we can find another places to move out and do the same thing.
Right. Yeah. I mean, and then that's great. And if people just can continue to do that, I mean, it starts to, even if you get like, half of your living expenses paid for, that's awesome.
Hmm.
Right.
Hmm.
Because usually, housing is just like 30% of people's income. And but right now it seems like I've heard a study that is pushing closer like 50% now with the interest rate and the cost
That's wild.
of housing. So it is creeping up there.
So there's a lot of different options. So you kind of basically say you have to decide where you want to go, look at all of the options for real estate, and just pick one, choose a lane, and say I'm going to focus on this. So then how would someone like if they're working a full-time job, uh, and how would they go and find deals? So what's the best way for you? Like either people can go two ways, right? So direct to seller, or they can go to the agent. So can you explain
Mhm.
those two ways, like which way you found helpful or which way how
Yeah,
those
I
strategies
think
would work?
the thing for me, obviously building relationships with agents is great because they may have some other listings, right?
Hmm.
But at the same time, what was most effective was direct to seller, right? And that's basically, you could either call them, text them, right? What we did was we did the old-fashioned way is we just wrote them a letter, right? It's a handwritten letter, very simple, because I think, people kind of lose sight of like with all the technology and stuff, especially like the older generation, they like to see, they like to touch things, right?
Hmm.
And so we found that our letters are pretty effective, right? I would say from our letters, we get at least a few deals out, just from our letters, right?
Oh, okay. So
And
letters are
and
good when they do it.
yeah, at least, and you can test it in your market because I know when I was doing it in Seattle area, it wasn't as effective, but here in Billings, it seems like it was more effective than Seattle. So you just kind of have to kind of test it out. But the thing is, you talk about people having a full-time job and stuff. Here's just the thing is like, yeah, like stick to your 9 to 5, right? And then from 5 to 9, work on the real estate side or work on the thing that you want to do to create your wealth, right? Because some people they get excited about like, you know, like the entrepreneurship is it's very sexy right now, right? Everybody
Hmm.
wants to be, quit their job, do their own thing. But the truth is um, having a stable job is great because then you don't have to worry too much about the income, right? Like, how are you going to pay your bill? Because when you become an entrepreneur, I'll tell you my own story, right? I was an engineer working for Hewlett Packard, and I was not making decent money as an engineer, but then I started doing real estate on the side. And then that real estate side income actually exceeded my engineering income,
Hmm.
right? And then from there, what I did was I jumped ship and I did real estate full time. But the truth is, looking back, I think I would have been better off just keeping my engineering income
Really?
and
Okay.
just continue to grow that and just keep growing it to the point where, because I was young at the time, to the point where I could actually really make that transition without having to work, because I didn't really have I so when I quit, I had that active income coming in, right? So I didn't really have the passive income coming in from the real estate. So what I saw was, okay, my income from real estate is exceeding my engineering income. So basically, I just switched from one job to another job, right?
Hmm. Yeah.
Versus having this job and having another, because that money I was making from real estate, you could have just reinvested and just created a passive income. Because I was doing a lot of more of the sales side, right?
Okay.
Just selling real estate, and then versus like really growing the cash flow side. So when you get the cash flow going, and then you still have your main income, and I mean it's a greater way to build wealth. There's a guy that I listen to. His name is Michael Zuber, one rental at a time. Look him up. And this is the guy that I follow, and that's his strategy. He's like, you know what? He had a full-time job, which he was starting to get burnt out. But you know what? He kept his full-time job, and he was buying real estate on the side, and was just creating that passive income, passive income, passive income. And then he got to the point where, his at his current position, there was things that was happening that he didn't like, and he was like, you know what, I don't, I can make that transition. And so he basically was able to basically retire from his other job, ahead of time in his own terms, and still had the income come in, not have to worry about, oh man, I gotta pay my bills, I got this, I got that. And then, now he's doing real well. He had like over, I think like over 150 units or something like that. And
Hmm.
still around, he has a YouTube channel, so check him out. But that's what I would encourage people to do. So in hindsight, even though I felt like I've did well, but man, there was a lot of hardship along the way of
Hmm.
just like, I know, how am I gonna make my mortgage payment? How am I gonna put food on the table? So you have that extra weight versus like, you got a good job, build it, and then now you have options.
Hmm. So really
So
focusing on like your long-term options because active income, though people hate their jobs, it's like it's a really good thing to do that has the active income that you're competent at that you know how to do.
absolutely. And if and if you like your job, great. That's even a better reason why to continue to keep doing what you're doing, and then just build it. Because I think like building wealth, it's a long-term strategy, right? We get so we fantasize because with the Instagram, with the
Hmm.
TikTok, I mean, people make it look like, man, it needs to come fast, right?
Yeah, I
But
feel like I'm
when
missing out.
yeah, yeah, the FOMO, right? Like, oh, I need to get this and I need to do this and that. But the truth is, like, just be methodical, right? Because it's a long game, and wealth is, especially in real estate, because real estates can go up and down. So same thing if you're investing in stock, goes up and down. But if you're in it for the long run, that's where the benefit comes in.
Hmm.
So really just look at the bigger picture, and don't be in such a rush. You may hate your job now, but you know what? Be glad that it's bringing you income. Like, think of a way how you could think, yes, I may hate my job, but at the same time, it's helping me build my wealth because it's giving you the opportunity from 5 to 9. work on building your wealth.
Hmm. Hmm. So someone's trying to get started in, they want their first deal. They gotta first decide, you gotta get educated, like watching stuff like this, getting in groups, going to meetups, pick your lane, how are you gonna do it? Start building relationships with people. So either reaching out to your local agents in your town or doing letters or door knocking. Um, so how does someone like what defines a deal? So say like someone's really excited, they're looking on the MLS and they got like, oh, this looks like a great deal. I could get this much for it. How does someone actually discern that it's a good deal?
Hmm. That's great because, for me, so you basically can decide, obviously, that there's got to be enough meat for you, right? In other words, like if you see a deal for 100,000, as an example, right?
Hmm.
But but you know that that the property can sell for 150,000, okay? Because you've done your research, right? You've done your homework, and that's the key thing is like in order to know what's a deal, you got to know what the deal is in your market, right?
Hmm.
Because some markets is you have higher spreads. Some markets you don't have a higher spread. So you kind of determine, what that spread is in your market. So if you're just studying like, okay, man, homes are selling for around 150 in this area, right? And then you see a house that's for 100,000, and you look, man, doesn't look like it needs a lot of work, right?
Hmm.
Um, then that's a deal. So if long as there's enough spread, okay, from what you can acquire for, it's almost sounds like, you always hear this simplicity, like, buy low, sell high, very simple. But
Hmm.
in real estate, it's kind of the same way. It's like you make your money in the buy, not in the sell, right?
Hmm. Yeah.
Because what happens if you're thinking, oh, I'm going to sell it for this much, but the market shifts, like we've seen in the last 6 months, right? I
Hmm.
mean,
Yeah.
it just like boop, right? And so, and then you're going to make less. It's like you can't count on that, right? So I always look at, okay, what is it now? Okay, and what could I get it for? Not what I think it's going to be worth 6 months from now, right?
Hmm.
So if you know it's worth 150, you can pick it up for 100, right? Well, you could sell it, make a little 25. So make the spread and move on, whether that's wholesaling, right? I think that something like that would be a great wholesale deal to wholesale it.
Hmm.
And if there's a way for you to hold it because you know what? Oh, my mortgage payment is going to be this much, and I can rent it out. Say, hey, if I put a down payment in, and I can get, my payments is 1,000 a month, and rents are $1,500 a month. Okay, well then that's cash flow. So basically,
Hmm.
once you understand your market and know what that spread is, right? Then that's how you know. And also too, is because you talk about networking and talking to other people, and that's great because see, utilize your resources, get them involved. Like, hey, especially if you meet someone at a meetup, they seem seasoned. You call them and say, I'm looking at this property. Here's what I can here's what I can get it for. Can you help me figure out if, how can you help me underwrite this, right?
Hmm. Yeah.
Meaning run the numbers and it's just a deal. And who knows, they might just buy it from you. It's like, oh, okay, well, why don't I just buy you? And then there's how you can make your money. So there's different ways. But the key thing is once you understand your market, you know what your yield is. It's like it's like being a doctor. You just don't want to have anybody just do surgery on you, right? You want someone
Yeah.
that's experienced and knows what they're doing, right? So, and that's the same thing when it comes to investing, is like, even though you're new, find somebody that's been doing it, have them help you, so this way you're not second guessing yourself.
Right. So it's really finding a leader in your area and being like, hey, I'm seeing this. This is what I think it is. What do you see? And be like, oh yeah, absolutely, you're right. You see a deal here, or like, actually, no, you don't see this and this and this. Actually, this area has problems, or there's area in Copper Ridge where it's like, hey, this house is really cheap. It's like, oh yeah, because the foundation's cracking, right? The
Right. Yeah.
foundation's falling
Yeah.
apart.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
So, I
So
mean,
there's,
like I was saying, like even here right now, I have other investors, locally that that I call, we talk, and it's like, hey, I'm looking at this deal. I just want to get your second opinion, and vice versa. They'll do the same to me. And I was
Mhm.
like, I just get a different set of eyes on it, just to run the numbers to make sure that that it works.
Yeah, yeah, I mean, that's really helpful, right? I do that to you too. It's like, hey, I see this, looks like a deal, and you're like, probably not. Or there was a flip I was looking at the other day, and it's like, oh yeah, this could be an option. And I called a flipper. He's like, yeah, actually, no, like it doesn't come. The comps don't really work out great. It's like it's a higher risk, right? So
Hmm.
here I think
Right.
it's a for sure deal, and it's like, oh no, that's a higher risk than you think. So
Right.
it
Yeah.
it happens. Yeah.
Yeah, it does. And so it's always good to, surround yourself with other people. And like investing, it doesn't have to be something solo, right? Like
Hmm.
you could even partner up with somebody on your first deal, right? Like I remember when I decided I wanted to do a flip, I actually partner up with someone that did over 150 flips, right?
Hmm.
Because like I'm new, like I don't know what I don't know, so I partner up with him. And along the way, it's like I've learned, like, okay, do this, do that, okay, boom. And it's not always about like how much I can make in this deal. It's like,
Hmm.
how much can I actually learn, right? Because once you learn something, it's way more valuable, right? Like I'll be okay with making nothing, just breaking even, making nothing on my first deal, which is actually what happened. My first couple of deals, I really didn't make any money, like nothing
Hmm.
substantial, maybe 3, 4, $5,000 or something like that. But what I've learned from that has literally made me hundreds of thousands because, now I know, right?
Hmm.
So even if you're a new investor, don't think that you always have to make a home run on your first deal, right? Just get at bat. Just go, partner with somebody that's doing it and just get in the game. And then
Hmm.
you start to get experience, you're going to get better at it.
Yeah, we said that last week that business, I think, mostly is just showing up. Like to succeed, you just have to do something and show up and follow through. And really
Right.
that's probably like you're gonna beat 95% of everyone else who just looks at it, goes to something. If you just show up, do something, learn from it, even if you don't make any money, that's a win, right? That's a positive
Right.
win in the right direction.
Absolutely. Just taking action, and when I say taking action, obviously it's just don't be reckless, right?
Yeah,
Like
yeah,
like
right.
learn, like surround yourself with other people, have them guide you, partner up with it. And that's the key. I really think, like, especially in your first deal, like, find a way to partner up with somebody that is experienced, provide value for them, right?
Hmm.
Because they're
Hmm.
always looking for deals because they're busy doing their thing. If you can show up, say, hey, I found this opportunity, you want to partner up with me on this one. And they'll be
Yep.
happy to help you. And you're going to learn so much along the way.
Yeah,
So,
yeah, that's key, right? So yeah, I would probably recommend you've done this is like don't show up, be like, hey, what do you need? How can I help you? Like, if your first is like maybe even just think critically a little bit and be like, hey, I think this would really add this. Let me just go try this and see if that would be helpful, and like just go do something, right? Again, and try to
mhm,
be helpful, and they'll probably let you know it's like that's actually not helpful. I'd rather have you do this, or thanks for doing
right.
that, but this is more helpful to me, right?
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
so in wrapping up here, what do you think, just in our area, and I guess like macro at large in the US, like what opportunities do you see for a strategy in 2024, right? Like people are always nervous, but the market does what the market does, and there's some information we have, but what are you noticing as far as in your own circle?
Yeah, what I am noticing is that there's a lot of people that are they're kind of scared, they're kind of uncertain about what's happening in the future, right? And so here's the key, that I just got to be certain with what you want to do, right? Knowing, okay, this is the path that I want to go, and the opportunities that I see, right, is just really just being creative. I know we haven't really touched too much about that, and maybe on the
Hmm.
other episodes we can get more creatively. But there's loans out there that people bought in the last couple of years that are paying, 3%, 4%, right? And they may be in a situation where that's going to force them to sell, right?
Hmm. Yeah.
And and they won't have much equity, right? Because of, high interest rates and things like that's happening. So there might not be much equity, but at the same time, it's an opportunity to basically take over their existing mortgage, right?
Right. Yeah.
And so I really see that as just one, um, one opportunity is being able to take over somebody's mortgage. Um, and if you do have, um, and if you do have some cash, if you want to buy, and if you want to buy your first property within the next year, right? I want to say go buy multifamily because you can get loans right now, 5% down, you could get up to 4 units,
Yeah.
owner
Yeah.
occupied, and that's a great way to start. I think, if I was to buy my first house again, I would buy a quadplex or some multifamily, you know, that I could afford at that time because
hmm
that's, especially right now with as low as 5%, because even if you have, you know, what's 5% of 400,000, what, 20 grand, right?
hmm Yeah.
$20,000, you could borrow that, your parents could help you out, whoever, you could come up with that money. And that could get you on a property ladder to creating your wealth for the future. So
Yeah. That's a
yeah.
great opportunity. Yeah. Fantastic. Well, cool. Anything else before we sign off, Keto? Any words of wisdom?
Yeah, I just want to say, like, I appreciate us doing this. This is great, and it's just to start, right? And I know as I'm building out, my YouTube channel, I'll be honest, I was kind of scared, like, man, what do I do? Like, I want all these fancy things to do this and that, and as I watch other YouTube channels, but as you can see, this is not going to be edited or anything like that. We're just starting, right?
hmm
Take it
Yeah.
and just start and do and just learn and just move forward. And that's the same thing when it comes to investing. Just start, right? Just start, get messy, learn, partner up with other people, and just learn the process because it is a long game. So
Yeah. Long game, not short. It takes years, not just weeks or months, right? It's not quick.
absolutely, yeah. Because they think like keto, so much, but I've been in this game for about 20 years now. Right? And even though I acquired my portfolio in a short amount of time, but I had so much education, experience along the way before I started, actually holding properties, right?
hmm
So it seemed like it was overnight, but it was like really, I tell people it was like 20 years in the making. It seemed like I acquired so much property in like the last 2 years, but really I had a 20-year buildup of just learning and that experience that I was able to take advantage of, of the market and the situation because I had that experience.
Yeah. You'll have to tell that story because I don't think I've heard anyone else say like I've gone from 0 units to 80 units in just 3 years, right? Just on your own,
Mm.
like no
Right.
partners, just yourself, like owning them. That's crazy.
So yeah. Yeah. So I mean, yeah, I mean, I'll do me. I mean, I did have some partners in a couple of my deals, but
Gotcha.
for the most part, it's just going, just from 0 to 80 in a just a short amount of window. So
Yeah, that's
definitely.
impressive.
All right. Well, thank you for showing up, and I look forward to our Saturday conversations. So we'll be doing this continually, right? Right,
Yeah,
Jeremy?
next week.
So
Yep.
yeah, the next week, and I think next week, stay tuned because we've got some uh how can we kind of give them a sneak preview of what we're going to talk about next week?
Next week, we're going to talk about problems.
Oh yes,
So
yes.
me and Keto both had problems, including a lot of fire. So that's probably the problems we're going to talk about. That investing and business ownership, it's awesome and it's challenging, but that also comes with big headaches. And we'll talk about that next week.
Absolutely. Yeah. Well, we'll share the good, the ugly. We'll share it all. So join us next week and we'll tell you what happened and what we're doing to overcome those. All
All
right. Thanks for joining.
right, bye guys.